All right, Sarah, whenever you're ready.
A story doesn't have to be true to tell the truth. Maybe that's why we all like stories so much. This is one of the ideas in Tim O'Brien's Vietnam War novel, The Things They Carried. Throughout the novel, he intentionally blurs the line between fact and fiction to point our attention to something deeper. I'm going to be reading bits and pieces of about the last half of the chapter entitled How to Tell a True War Story. In a true war story, if there's a moral at all, it's like the thread that makes up the cloth. You can't tease it out. You can't extract the meaning without unraveling the deeper meaning. And in the end, there's really not much to say about a true war story except maybe, true war stories do not generalize. They do not indulge in abstraction or analysis. For example, war is hell. As a moral declaration, the old truism seems perfectly true. And yet, because it abstracts, because it generalizes, I can't believe it with my stomach. It all comes down to gut instinct. A true war story makes the stomach believe. This one does it for me. I've told it many times, many versions. But here's what actually happened. We crossed over a river and marched west into the mountains. On the third day, Kurt Lemon stepped on a booby-trapped 105 round. He was playing catch with Rat Kiley, laughing, and then he was dead. Later, higher in the mountains, we came across a baby VC water buffalo. What it was doing there, I don't know. No farms or paddies. But we chased it down, got a rope around it, and led it to a little deserted village where we set up for the night. After supper, Rat Kiley went over and stroked its nose. He opened a can of sea rations, pork and beans, but the baby buffalo wasn't interested. Rat shrugged. He stepped back and shot it through the right front knee. The animal did not make a sound. It went down, tried to get back up again, and Rat took careful aim and shot off an ear. He shot it in the hindquarters and in the little hump on its back. He shot it twice in the flanks. It wasn't to kill, it was to hurt. He put the rifle muzzle up to the mouth and shot the mouth away. Nobody said much. We all just stood around watching, feeling all kinds of things, but there wasn't much pity for the baby water buffalo. Kurt Lemon was dead. Rat Kiley had just lost his best friend in the world. A week later, he would write a long personal letter to the guy's sister, who wouldn't even write back. But for now, it was a question of pain. He shot off the tail. He shot away chunks of meat below the ribs. All around us was the smell of smoke and filth and deep greenery. And the evening was humid and very hot. Rat went to automatic. He shot randomly, almost casually, quick little spurts in the belly and butt. Then he reloaded, squatted down, and shot it in the left front knee. Again, the animal fell down hard and tried to get back up again, but this time he couldn't quite make it. It wobbled and went down sideways. Rat shot it in the nose. He bent forward and whispered something as if talking to a pet. And then he shot it in the throat. All the while, the baby buffalo was silent, well, almost silent, just a light bubbling where the nose had been. Nothing moved, except the eyes, which were enormous, the pupils shiny black and dumb. And Rat Kiley was crying. He tried to say something, but he just hugged his gun and went off by himself. The rest of us stood around in a ragged circle just looking at the baby buffalo. Nobody said anything. We had just witnessed something essential, something profound, a new piece of the world that there wasn't even a name for yet. Somebody kicked the baby buffalo. It was still alive, though just barely, just in the eyes. Amazing, Dave Jensen said. My whole life I've never seen anything like it. Never? Not hardly, not once. Keola and Mitchell Sanders picked up the baby buffalo, hauled it across the yard, and threw it in the village well. Amazing. Dave Jensen kept saying, "A new wrinkle. I never seen it before." Mitchell Sanders took out his yo-yo. "Well, that's Nam. Garden of Evil. Over here, man, every sin is fresh and original." And he was right. For the common soldier, at least, war has the feel, the spiritual texture of a great ghostly fog, thick and permanent. There is no clarity. Everything swirls. The old laws are no longer binding. The old true is no longer true. Right spills over into wrong. Order blends into chaos. Love into hate. Ugliness into beauty. Civility into savagery. The vapors suck you in. You don't know where you are or why you're there, and the only certainty is overwhelming ambiguity. In war, you lose your sense of the definite, hence your sense of truth itself. And therefore, it's safe to say that in a true war story, nothing is ever absolutely true. You can tell a true war story by the questions you ask. Someone tells a story, let's say, and afterwards you ask, is it true? And if the answer matters, you've got your answer. For example, we've all heard this one. 4 guys go down a trail. A grenade sails out. One guy jumps on it to take the blast and save his 3 buddies. Was it true? The answer matters. You feel cheated if it didn't happen. Without the grounding reality, it's just a trite bit of puffery, pure Hollywood, untrue in the same way all such stories are untrue. And yet, even if it did happen, and maybe it did, anything's possible, you know you can't believe it because a true war story doesn't depend on that kind of truth. Absolute occurrence is irrelevant. A thing may happen and be a total lie. Another thing may not happen and be truer than the truth. For example, 4 guys go down a trail. A grenade sails out. One guy jumps on it to take the blast, but it's a killer grenade and everybody dies anyway. Before they die, though, one of the dead guys looks over and says, "The hell you do that for?" And the jumper says, "Story of my life, man." And the other guy starts to smile, but he's dead. That's a true story that never happened. 20 years later, I can still see the sunlight on Kurt Lemon's face. He turned, looked at Rat Kiley, and he laughed as he took that curious half step from shade into the light, his face suddenly brown and shining. And as his foot touched down in that instant, he must have thought it was the sunlight that was killing him. But it wasn't. It was a rigged 105 round. But if I could ever get the story right, the way the sun seemed to gather around him and pick him up and lift him into that tree, if I could somehow recreate the fatal whiteness of that light, the quick glare, the obvious cause and effect, then you would believe the last thing Kurt Lemon believed, which for him must have been the final truth. Now and again, when I tell this story, someone will come up to me afterwards and tell me she liked it. It's always a woman, usually an older woman, of kindly temperament and humane politics. She'll explain that, as a rule, she hates war stories. She doesn't understand why people want to wallow in all that blood and gore. But this one she liked. The poor baby buffalo, it made her sad. Sometimes there are even little tears. What I should do, she'll tell me, is put it all behind me. Find new stories to tell. But she wasn't listening. It wasn't a war story. It was a love story. But you can't say that. All you can do is tell it one more time. Patiently, adding and subtracting, making up a few things to get at the real truth. No Mitchell Sanders, you tell her. No Rat Kiley. No Kurt Lemon. No baby buffalo. No trail junction. No vines or moss or white blossoms. Beginning to end, you tell her, it's all made up. Every damn detail, the mountains and the river, and especially that poor dumb baby buffalo. None of it happened. None of it. And even if it did happen, it didn't happen in the mountains. It happened in a little river near the Battagam Peninsula, and it was raining like crazy, and one night a guy named Stink Harris woke up screaming with a leech on his tongue. You can tell a true war story if you just keep on telling it. course, a true war story is never about war. It's about sunlight. It's about that special way that dawn spreads out over a river when you know you have to cross that river and march into the mountains and do things that you are afraid to do. It's about love and memory. It's about sorrow. It's about sisters who never write back and people who never listen.